Hello and welcome to the MovieKing Podcast. My name is David Jurmann and I'll be your host. So last episode I know I said I was going to talk about Beetlejuice. Don't worry, that's still coming, but today I have something I'm very, very excited to talk about, and that is the new animated film Transformers 1. And in the second half of this episode, I'm going to review the new Blumhouse movie Afraid, which I know so many of you are probably very eager to hear me talk about. No, not really, but anyway, let's just start off with Transformers 1. So I had a really cool opportunity to see this movie a few months ago, actually, back in July. That's not very normal for a movie, especially of this size. When you have a studio showing a movie more than like a week early to the general public, they are very confident in it. So they don't want, they don't want bad word of mouth getting in and really hurting its early buzz and box office. So, that's a really good sign. Paramount was very confident in this movie and they really had faith in the filmmaker and everything involved. So that was really interesting. And before I get into the actual thoughts of the movie, I want to just kind of lay down what my expectations were for it. And so I saw the trailer, back when it came out a few months ago, and I wasn't huge on it. I thought it looked kind of kiddie. The humor wasn't really landing for me. It just kind of looked not what I'm looking for in a Transformers movie, which is something, more epic in scale and just really, interesting with the characters. It just didn't look all that interesting to me, so I wasn't too excited for it. But hearing this, they had this screening and Paramount, showing it so early, that's a very good sign. This wasn't a test screening or anything. Those are very, embargoed very heavily. So those ones they don't want you talking about. But this is like a pretty final version of the movie, and I went in kind of like not really sure what to expect, but I have to just say, this was a really, really good Transformers movie. As a person who loves this franchise and loves these characters, I dressed up as Optimus Prime as a kid. I really do love this franchise a lot, but I just thought it was a really good movie. And I love what this movie does with the Transformers characters. I mean, just comparing this to the live action films from Michael Bay, and it's probably something that, most people probably don't care for in the Michael Bay movies, is that the human characters, most of them aren't very likable. You don't really care that much for them. And this movie doesn't have any humans at all. So you may be thinking like, well, do I want to just watch robots all the time? And the answer is actually yes, you do, because what this movie does so well is that it compensates the humanity and the lack of humans with having robots that have so much humanity to them, and that really adds a lot to this movie, I think, and really adds to the characters. It makes the whole thing just feel very mature. I just really like that a lot, and the cast does a really good job of really expressing that in these characters too. Chris Hemsworth, I really like him. He's had a great year too with Furiosa playing Dementus in that film. I think that's one of the best performances I've seen all year. What Chris Hemsworth does so well in this is that he does his own thing. We know Optimus Prime so well to be played by Peter Cullen and his iconic voice, but Chris really brings something so just personal to this character, and I really like the way he does it. Brian Tyree Henry is great as Megatron as we know him. He's just like super, like, you can see where he becomes Megatron. You can see that sort of unsettled nature about him, but he also has this really good humanity to him also, that you can see where he's coming from, and he's coming from a place that he believes is right. And I thought that was a really complex performance. I really like that a lot. And then some of the supporting cast is really good too. Scarlett Johansson's good. Keegan-Michael Key is very good. Steve Buscemi has a very limited role, but he's also very funny in it because he channels Heath Ledger's Joker a little bit, in my opinion. So that was really nice. And I just have to say, the action here is mind-blowingly good. It is probably some of the best action I've seen in a Transformers movie, and that is crazy to think about coming from this little, animated Transformers movie. And I have, all the respect in the world for animation, but you just think like in a PG family movie, you're not like expecting the action to be all that incredible, especially compared to like Michael Bay, who's, the most heavy action director out there, maybe besides like Zack Snyder or something, but the action here is so good. There were just moments that I couldn't believe just what I was watching, and I was like, this is so satisfying. It's really, really good. And as Optimus might say in some cases, the story here is more than meets the eye. It's really a good story. I was actually also very surprised by how good the story is here, because the trailer doesn't really show what the story is, and I'm not going to get too far into it because I think it's really best if you go in blind. But while this is a movie that's largely like a Star Wars Revenge of the Sith in a sense that you know exactly where it's going, this movie has these interesting places it goes to get there. You know, like you have this inevitable place you have to go, but the way it gets there is really interesting to me, and I thought it was not what I expected out of it. And it actually had a more just mature, again, complex vibe to it that I really didn't expect, and that was especially in the second half of this movie that I thought was very good. And also, just this movie has, I have to say, one of the best and most satisfying third acts I've seen in a while. I just couldn't, like, I was getting so excited watching it. It felt like Avengers Endgame to me. Like, it just, the way things were, it was just so epic and cool, and like, just felt like you were watching like these like Transformers toys like bashing each other. It just felt, that's what it felt like to me. It just felt like you were a kid playing with Transformers toys, and that's, to me, that's awesome. I thought that was so cool. My audience was going bananas. I literally felt like an Endgame in the audience. Like, it was just like that much hype around it. I don't know if that'll happen, all around when people see this movie now, but that was just, you could just tell people who love this franchise are going to enjoy it. And I just have to say, Josh Cooley, the director, did a very good job. He did Toy Story 4 a few years back, and I like that movie probably more than most people do. I know people thought Toy Story 3 was the perfect ending. I'm with you, people, but Toy Story 4, honestly, like, I hadn't loved it when I first saw it, but the more I've seen it now, I really realize it's actually a good movie. I really liked it a lot. But in any case, if you weren't really, like, in love with the way he handled Toy Story, and you do like Transformers, I think you have to have faith in this guy, because he really does a good job here, and I was, like, super immediately impressed with how much how well he handled this movie. But, of course, with every movie, there's maybe a few problems I had. Nothing too big here, honestly. I think this is a really good movie overall, but I will say the first act starts off pretty rocky. I was not very wowed over by the way this movie began. It kind of reminded me of that first trailer that came out that was just very goofy, wasn't really clicking, it just felt off in a way, and that's kind of how this first act is. Like, it wasn't bad, but just watching it, I was kind of not totally won over by it. And I will say, like, once you get to the second act, the movie just clicks. Like, you just immediately, like, you'll know it when you see it. It's just all of a sudden the movie just starts working, the humor's better, the story gets better, the characters get better. But I will say also, the way the movie wraps up and, the way everything kind of comes to a head makes the first act better. I think looking back now, I like the first act more than I did when I first watched it. So, it's one of those movies that I think will work better on rewatch, actually, because you just really appreciate all the setup this did for the characters in the beginning that pays off at the end. And additionally, I would say a few scenes feel a little rushed. The movie probably could have used another 5 minutes to flesh out some things in the story. There were, a few character motives that felt like they could have just used an extra couple minutes to really kind of set them up a little more. Not that I think they were handled badly or anything here. I actually think most of them were very good. But, I think just sometimes you can feel a couple minutes extra wouldn't have hurt. So I think maybe that would be something could have been done to improve the movie. And the last thing here really is Bumblebee's approach took me off guard a bit. I'm honestly not quite sure how I feel about it yet, because Keegan-Michael Key, he's so funny. He does a great job as Bumblebee. I mean, it's like great casting. I love Bumblebee. He's one of my favorite characters, but I don't know if this is just because of the effect of all the Michael Bay Transformers movies, and even the Bumblebee standalone movie, which I really liked, where Bumblebee's mostly quiet and just kind of, he uses his voice through his expressions and sometimes the radio. In this movie, like, Keegan-Michael Key's just talking all the time. It actually reminded me of, like, Donkey from Shrek a little bit. Just the way it's going, and, like, characters are getting annoyed by him a little bit, and, like, they're like, oh my god, please be quiet. It kind of had that energy to it, and that wasn't something I expected out of it, so I'm not quite sure how I feel, but he was funny, so it's not to say that the humor didn't work, it's not to say that the writing didn't work, I'm just not sure how I felt about this interpretation on the character yet, but that may be something, again, that works more for me on rewatch as I'm more prepared for it and can sort of re-experience it knowing what I know now. But this was just honestly such a good movie. I really can't express how good it is and how much of a surprise this was, a pleasant surprise. Because I went into this movie, even though Paramount really was super confident in it, I didn't totally know what to expect, and I didn't feel like I was going to be won over as much as I nearly was. Like, because I was blown away by the way this movie was. I was really like, none of the trailers have done justice to what this movie actually is and how good it is and how satisfying it is to fans. I'm not sure, if you're not huge on Transformers, I don't know if this movie's really going to like be as good as it was for me, but I'm just super pleased with how it came out. I can't wait to see a sequel if they make it. Please go see it, because I'm actually a bit nervous right now because Paramount, again, the trailers weren't good. Paramount, like, they're really showing this movie early to a lot of people, and sometimes that means like people who would have gone opening weekend won't go anymore. Hopefully that they still will. I mean, I'm obviously going to see it again. I'm going to see it probably a second and third time even. But, you really just hope people are going to check it out because this movie needs to make money. I think this deserves a sequel more than any Transformers movie before it. And while I do like the live action movies quite a bit, Rise of the Beast was pretty decent. Again, I really like Bumblebee. This was a step above all of those by a lot, like maybe 2 steps above those. And to me, this is the best Transformers movie we've gotten to date. So I am super happy. Please go check it out. To me, this gets probably a B plus, maybe an A minus even. I have to see on rewatch, but I can't speak highly enough of how much I enjoyed this movie. It is one of the most entertaining movies of the whole year for sure. And I can't even imagine how cool it'll be in 3D also. I didn't get to see it that way, but I've heard the 3D is very good from people who saw an early clip at CinemaCon, so it's really cool as well. So please go see this movie. Please go see Transformers 1 when it comes out in theaters. You won't regret it, I promise. Now, up next is my review for the new Blumhouse movie, Afraid. I guess I'll just say, if you aren't too familiar with Blumhouse, they are like the most hit or miss horror studio out there. They have movies like Imaginary, and Night Swim, and Truth or Dare, and Fantasy Island. And then they also have movies like Happy Death Day, Get Out, Megan, and some Black Phone, others that are actually really good. So, they have so many like really cool movies, and then they have so many that are just garbage. So, you never know what to expect when you go to a Blumhouse movie. I mean, Speak No Evil comes out this weekend. That's a Blumhouse movie. It looked bad from the trailers, but it's a remake of a movie that was very well received. So, you never know. It could be hit or miss. You never know what you're getting. Afraid looked like it was going to be in the very bad camp of Blumhouse movies, but that's kind of how I went into this. I just enjoy seeing cheesy bad horror movies sometimes. I mean, I watched Imaginary in theaters thinking it was going to be very funny bad. I just enjoy that. The Bye Bye Man, that's not Blumhouse, but if you haven't seen it, that's just, to me, the ultimate guilty pleasure horror movie. And so I was just excited to see what this would be. I mean, I didn't think it would be good, but I was just like, I'm just down to be entertained. I'll go to the movies no matter what it is. I don't care. So I'm just like, give me something fun. And maybe it'll be good. But let me just start off with saying that this movie is not bad. It's not as bad as I thought it would be. So the ideas are actually pretty interesting. It showcases AI. So this movie is about AI largely, and it's kind of about this family who gets an AI assistant in their house, and the AI assistant inevitably kind of becomes rogue and starts creating havoc, and that's kind of the general premise of this movie. But I thought the way it handled AI was actually pretty interesting. We're in this very weird place now with AI where creatively we don't like it. We don't want to see any AI kind of taking away the arts and taking away jobs or any of that stuff. But we also have to say AI can help us a lot with the jobs we have and the things we're doing every day. I mean, it can be a very useful tool, but it's one of those things right now where if it gets in the wrong hands, it can be a problem. We're not really sure how we should handle it and when it's okay to use and when it's not okay. We're all kind of adapting to that as a society, and I think that's really interesting. And this movie kind of has a little bit of that in it, where you can kind of see in the beginning it's actually a very helpful tool and really helping people around the house do things they couldn't normally do as quickly. And you can see just how it's a really like, you want it. You kind of actually want this AI, and it's a very realistic interpretation of AI for the most part in the beginning. Like, it really, that's where we are right now with how we use AI. It's just very helpful, it's useful, it makes things quick. And I liked how it starts off very nice, but slowly throughout the movie, it's just privacy concerns and stuff like just start getting a little bit out of hand. Very slowly though, like it's a nice descent into what's not okay anymore. And I thought that was a really interesting way to go about it. Again, I think it's just really it's how we use AI today, and I think that was done well. So the movie is definitely watchable. Like you kind of can enjoy the way it handles AI and seeing just how it evolves throughout the film. That was interesting, and the movie is by no means boring at any point. It's also incredibly short. Probably one of the shortest movies I've ever seen, if I'm being honest. Like, I mean, the movie just ended, and I was like, wait, it's over already? Like, that's crazy. The movie was probably without credits, only like an hour and 15 minutes. So for any of you who, enjoy short movies, this is perfect for you. If you like good short movies, maybe not, but, it was just a very short time, and so that made it go by very quickly. That also adds to its watchability. So even if it was terrible, it's at least super quick and goes by pretty quickly. But as for what works in this movie, besides the AI showcase, I think, the acting is pretty decent. I mean, John Cho is a great actor. I love him in the Star Trek movies by J.J. Abrams. Searching, that is a really great movie. Searching is... it's a movie that came out a few years ago. It was from Sundance. It kind of takes place all on a computer. It's about a guy trying to find his daughter. Great movie. Please check that out if you haven't already. But he was pretty good in this. And his wife is played by Catherine Waterston. I think Waterston. She was very good as well, and I kind of enjoyed the performance she gave. There are some other good supporting actors in this. Nothing crazy good, but everyone does a good job. And a couple surprising actors I didn't even expect to see in this. One in particular who was from another horror movie this year that I really liked. This movie has a pretty decent cast. But, while the acting was good, the movie's big problem really is that it just gets very generic as it goes. The characters aren't particularly interesting either, so you just don't really have anything to really be that invested in. Like, it just kind of loses its way. The AI just kind of becomes an entity that you could see in any other movie. It's nothing special here. I just kind of wish it really leaned more into that realistic place where we are now. I wish it spent more time showing human accountability for AI's power and how we give it that power. The movie never really explored that. I kind of think that would have been an interesting angle to go, but unfortunately the movie just kind of chooses to stay in the, AI just kind of goes rogue path, and I didn't think that was a very interesting avenue to go about. I think it would have been much more interesting to really lean more into how we are responsible for AI's power. I think that would have just really been an interesting way to go about it, and maybe something a little different. Because the movie actually does kind of go in that place a few times. Like, you can kind of see, like, where it could have done it. How, this AI only is so active because we kind of put its cameras places, we turn it on, we're doing all this stuff to give it so much information, but I just wish the movie did a little more to explore that, so that was a bit of a disappointment. Also, I'm just not a big fan of the climax of this movie. I think it just kind of comes totally out of left field. I didn't think it was a very interesting way to kind of conclude what was going on here. It's very predictable. It's just, I don't know, it just didn't work for me at all. And then it just ended. Like, it was so underwhelming. And then the movie just literally wrapped up and it was like, oh, it's over? Oh, okay, I guess it's over. Like, whatever. So, I didn't really care for that. And I don't know, it's just this movie's very Blumhouse. It's nothing special. It's nothing to run home about. It's not even scary, honestly. But it's not that bad. Like, it's, again, perfectly watchable. The actors are fine in it. The ideas are even pretty okay in it for part of the time. And, there's far worse you could have done. Like, I would take this movie over A Night Swim or An Imaginary any day of the week. It's not that bad. But, should you see it? Probably not. It's one of those movies, though, where, like, if you're on Netflix, and it's on Netflix, and you're just like, it's an hour, 15 minutes of my time, without credits, and you just want something really quick to watch, and you turn your brain off, it's not that bad. It's fine. but it could have been a lot better. And I think anyone who watches it can admit it could have been a lot better. But overall, it's probably a C. Very mediocre in every sense of the word. I probably could go lower on it if I wanted, but honestly, I don't really see a need to be that harsh on it. It's not an offensive movie by any means, so it's okay. But that about does it for this episode. If you want to follow my reviews, you can find me on Letterboxd at MovieKing1224. You can also listen to this podcast on your favorite apps such as Spotify, YouTube, Apple Podcasts, and Amazon Music. If you have any comments or feedback, I would love to hear it and improve the show. And of course, if you've enjoyed this episode, please consider liking, subscribing, and hitting the notification bell to hear more like it. I appreciate you all so much for listening, and I'll talk to you next time with a review for Beetlejuice. Thank you. Bye-bye.